O'Malley is a musician, songwriter and community access and outreach worker for schools in Technological University Dublin. His work spans both creative and educational spheres, combining commitments. I'll wait until they finish having a waffle there, boys. Yeah? No. Just doing the intro here, boys.
That one book, so.
No, yeah. We're not from the class. We're not from the same class.
Alright, so O'Malley comes from a strong tradition of community-rooted cultural practice through family and community involvement in writing local cultural initiatives and collective creative spaces, and he's long been connected to environments that value expression, dialogue and the nurturing of community voice. This tradition is reflected in associations with projects and publications including the Lighthouse Collection, Migrating Minds and the Bayside Writers Collective, a community-centred initiative fostering writing, shared experience, literary participation across generations, including your late father and your brother. Is that correct?
That's better than what I gave you.
Well, that's because you gifted me the Migrating Minds Volume 3, and so I was having a nice read of that and just wondering if JP and John, your family there, want to give me a shout out. Alongside your musical and educational work, Conor, you remain engaged in socially conscious cultural practice, supporting artists and creating spaces where creativity and lived experience can be shared. And at my launch, the Temper-Mental MissElayneous album launch at Flux Studios here up in the gallery, Conor recited an excerpt from my very first song, which I wrote in 2009 called Dominoes, and he opened the evening with reflections on equity, identity and truth-telling. And your reading framed the work as both personal expression and cultural commentary, so he really saw me. When he read my lyrics, he really saw and heard me. And
great video.
Brilliant, thank you. Our connection as workers and artists reflects wider creative community ties across music, education and cultural participation. O'Malley's work demonstrates an ongoing commitment to dialogue, access and community voice. And Conor is so cool. I met him up at an open day with my LCAs 2 years ago. It's college open day. I thought that was banging. Me, a JCSB coordinator and second level school teacher, meeting an access officer, and like it was just amazing to have these type of cool friends. Like an access officer is my friend. I feel really amazing about that. And then Conor very kindly invited myself and my father to perform for his Pieta House gig a couple of years ago. So thanks, Conor. And now Shaen. So Shaen, you hold a Bachelor of Social Science and a Master's in Community Youth Work from Maynooth University. Youth worker? Yes, I got that right. A community activist and addiction practitioner with a background in social science and community development, Delaney returned to education as a mature student, drawing on his working class experience to inform both his academic and professional path. His work with marginalised communities alongside his research interests focuses on social exclusion, addiction, reintegration, class inequality, education and community-based responses to marginalisation. Delaney is passionate about the role education can play as a catalyst particularly for people from working class and marginalised communities. He believes education can empower individuals to find their voice, challenge inequality and reconnect lived experience with knowledge, advocacy and collective opportunity. As both practitioner and advocate, Delaney brings lived and professional insight to conversations surrounding belonging, access and social justice, grounding his work in community engagement and social responsibility. Absolutely. This commitment was reflected in his contribution as well to the Temper-Mental MissElayneous launch at Flux Studios last year, where he recited an excerpt from There's Only One You, another song of mine. Drawing on his work in youth and community development, he reflected on how my lyrics echoed the lived realities of those that he works with, their struggles, their resilience and their search for dignity and connection through creative expression. Again, very seen and really took on what I was saying in my lyrics, which is amazing when you feel heard by fabulous men like this. It's wonderful. You'll speak as part of the panel discussion reflecting on returning to education as a mature student, working class identity, belonging and the transformative power of education and lived experience. So that will open us up to we're going to have a casual conversation really on those themes of, I think, class and belonging. I might start with Conor. I might ask you about your role in the world of academia at third level, at higher education, further education, and your role and how you see success, struggles and success in your role.
Just want to start off by saying thanks very much to all the folks. And I feel like after all that exquisite use of language and amazing ideas and going back through the ancestry of where you come from, there is a bit of, I'm shitting myself now. I feel like I'm in front of the firing line in a fucking firing squad after such amazing poetry. I'm used to music where you can hide behind a guitar and you have a wall of sound behind you and you can project all these great ideas, but hats off to comedians and poets. I don't know how you do it. It's just raw emotion and ideas, and I love it. I have a huge respect for comedians and poets. And performance poetry is a different thing though, because it's kind of giving it up there and then. And you have an amazing delivery. You're almost like watching someone in the Abbey or something. Like there's an art to the performance as well. So it's amazing to watch. And as a kind of sometime performer, I'm taking notes, and it's amazing. And so fair play to this amazing stuff. What did you say I was again?
Asking
Oh,
you,
yeah,
I
I'm a
was
big
saying-
important academic.
I was asking about maybe that relational part of your role with students, you know, and what it's like having that duty to, and that role of service towards your students, and what you've witnessed in terms of struggle and success in terms of class belonging and helping students to feel
Well, it's as simple as
belonging.
this. I left school, my son's in his leave at a certain moment. Lower middle class background, family of 6, we're all doing well. My brother lost my brother to, he took his own life. I'm 18, he's 21, so I'm doing the leaving cert going, what's going on here? What's this all about? School doesn't matter anymore. Leaving cert out the window. Didn't do a great year, kind of failed the leaving cert, came out of school going, right, PLC, let's jump in, do art college. Love drawing and doodling and writing things. And just that was my whole world, escape into that, and like, let's do this full time, this could be great. I could actually learn properly, because school was just a bit of a, you know, what's going on here. And it's a year that, having flashbacks to it, I wouldn't like to be back there. And it's kind of like, when I go out to schools, I look through the prism of everything I do from when I was sitting in that space and going, I would not like to be you now. So I come from that place of just not a great time in school, and then when you leave, you kind of discover that learning art, poetry, music, all the things you do when you're in your gaff, when you're just listening to music and you're absorbing albums and poetry, and you're reading and writing and drawing. These are the things that will sustain you for the rest of your life, because what you're interested in when you're about 15, 16, I still love now. I just still passionate about music, art, poetry, all this kind of stuff, all these ideas. Loved your beat poetry as well. Kerouac and Ginsberg, I can hear Howl, I can hear Tom Waits, all that stuff. That's just like you're on a train and you're absorbing imagery, and it's like you're taking it all in. So I love that kind of lyricism, and I'm kind of learning it all the time, getting better at it. But so I went over to England, then I got lucky enough to go through a PLC for a couple of years. Kind of struggled to pass it because I liked it so much. It probably got me through. Went over to England, did a year there, eventually managed to scrape a degree together, came home. Long story short, different jobs, odds and ends. Went over to England for 10 years and discovered teaching. And actually, like yourself, was using this thing of like, terrified in front of people. When I first thought, I was like, how do you teach? What do you do? But it was always like, you love music, you love art, just talk about that all day. Just connect with the kids and what they're interested in. So that was the start of the teaching journey, and then you get the teaching qualification. And then 10 years is like, I just have to go back to Ireland. You know, you never really settle. Wherever you go, you never settle. Your home is always your home, your place and your belonging, and your sense of self is always compromised. Especially when we're over the other side of the pond. Long history there. So you're always kind of thinking, I'd love to get back and talking about it all the time. You get sick of talking about the same things. So eventually we got back. Great to be back in Dublin, and then to have the pleasure of just landing a lucky job. I applied for 2 jobs, and I got back and got one as an access community outreach, because let's just say I don't think I'd fit into the school model too well. So I got lucky with a community access role, and it just happens to give me a bit of scope working with kids from all the deaf schools. Well, not all of them, but it will be soon. They're all knocking on the door. So a lot of the deaf schools around Dublin, and you're getting to see an amazing kind of cross-section of Dublin, because I work in Blanche, Tala and the city, and I just see this amazing cross-section of society with people from everywhere, especially in town now. There's people from all backgrounds, and the kids are amazing, and they're ambitious as well, you know, and from all walks of life. So it's sometimes hard to distinguish. You don't get to know them like you do in your school. You're kind of like the avuncular uncle coming in with entertainment and the spinning plates. But you know, you get to see a little bit of the magic of workshops and science, technology, engineering, art. And I as you said, I promote a lot of art and music and try and go in that way. That's my angle. I do like a bit of science. I think I've got better with science stuff, but it would terrify me at school. Boo for science. And they can coexist. You know, the old alchemists, there was no distinction between alchemy and religion. And so that's what I do now, and try and just promote different workshops, whether it be art, music, science, and then with the view of, you know, hopefully a few will go on. So a lot of the schools you're going out to, it's kind of kids who are falling through the cracks because there's not that narrative at home. Now, the things are changing. I think Dublin's a lot better than it was maybe 20, 30 years ago, where there was just not very many options. So I think things are changing now, and I think apprenticeships are going to get better. There's always a couple of lads and girls in the class, and you're thinking, you're not going to college, you're probably just signing up for a PLC because you were told to. But if trades were better now, we have this thing of universities amazing, it's this big, you know, Valhalla on the, you know, on the hill, but like apprenticeships and trades, what's wrong with them? Like, but it's still seen as a lesser kind of thing, and it's probably going to level out because we're going to realise, oh shit, who's going to build all these houses? So I think there's going to be a push towards apprenticeships, but it's going to be a long way off, I think. So there's still the kind of university and class is definitely alive and well when it comes to universities, Trinities, UCDs, and it's still a brand name, and kids are fighting over CAO points and, you know, disability here and there. There's kids asking about DARE and they're going for medicine, and, you know, so it's a weird landscape to navigate, because you're kind of cheek by jowl with the academic side of things, and then you're also seeing the reality on the ground of like the day-to-day of what's going on in schools, and you know, you go to some schools and no one's going to college, you know that for a fact, and I think a lot of schools in Dublin are really isolated from where they are, because a lot of their schools get really good opportunities because they're kind of in the epicentre, and they're getting a lot of opportunities thrown at them, where, you know, I won't name any names of schools, but you're very much in kind of no man's land. You're not getting any of that. So I think that's a big challenge out there in some of the areas, and especially West Dublin, like, let's face it, you know, where there's going to be huge challenges in the future. And no offence to West Dublin, it's great places. I'm just using that off the top of my head, sorry. And so that's what I do.
That's cool.
Sorry, a bit long-winded, but I'm trying to get...
Fabulous. Also fabulous now, because it's amazing, makes me think of, I was speaking to some teachers, you know, and they were saying, you know, bring back telling kids that they can, you know, like, bring back, like, you know, students being able to kind of dip out in fifth year if they want, because they feel called to an apprenticeship. And I said, yeah, that's all well and good saying that, but they also need, like, they're also children, and they need the opportunity to be encouraged to finish, so that they can then decide with having supports and resources behind them, and that maturity and that learning. They need that time, right?
Yeah,
you know?
because
so they have
could
to
grow into the future filmmakers, artists, poets and writers. Risk your path.
Yes.
Fair play to you, but if you want to do that, you love doing it, it's going to carry you forward, and that's what kind of gave me an education. I would have been horrified with the idea of a trade, to be honest. It was just not my interest.
My mom wanted me to be a plumber.
Yeah.
The richest person in all our family is over where I was from.
Yeah,
She was like,
yeah. So
you know,
get to try, get the
you
money.
wouldn't try
Big
that.
pressure as well to be earning money, like where you're coming from, to get, you know, you're like, well, why would you go and be studying for years and years? But that's kind of long term. It's an
I
investment.
didn't do either.
Huh?
I didn't go to university either.
No.
Just born talented.
Yeah. Just, you're a one-off. You're a rare find.
That's beautiful. And so I'll just move then on to Shaen, just to talk on that note of college and that, and not going to college versus going to college, finishing school at 10 a.m. or in fifth year or whatever. Truancy, stuff like that. You and I have talked about this before. The desire to go to school, opportunities to go to college, do they exist? You know, are you in no man's land like these schools that are on the outskirts, not getting all the resources if you're a DESH school, or a certain college not getting the here and there schemes, or not even having access to information? Tell us a little bit about maybe your experience of school, and then definitely college, because I want to hear about maybe as well. Yeah.
So I suppose, you know, I'm sitting here tonight and, you know, I'm hearing, you know, the language, you know, class, I'm hearing really good stuff where, you know, I'm identifying all the time with people, you know, you're not from that class if you don't know who Vinnie the Paul is, hand-me-downs and what have you. You know, I suppose for me, you know, you can tell straight away the accent, I'm not Dublin. Yeah. Straight side, but you know, I come from a town called Portlaoise, outside of Dublin. When I grew up there, it was literally a town and a prison. The prison, you know, and it was that. It was like the town and the prison. So, you know, some wonder of the world decided, right, we're going to plank a prison in there. So be it. Maybe me, I'm like, oh look, this is more entertaining than school. You know, in school, sign in, gone. You know, I have no interest in it. Now, at the same time, I had what you call the attention span for goldfish. So I could go in and I could last a minute. I'd be back out. You know, I never had a real desire for school because I was seeing, you know, I suppose I seemed to be more, the world spoke more to me that way rather than the book. You know, and really I didn't give the book time. That's really what it was. And so like that, you know, there was one school, and if you didn't make it there, by God, excuse me language, but you were effed. Yeah? Because everyone knew you, and that was the gig. So I was like, yeah, right, so I'm effed anyway, so be it, you know? And I stayed away from that, and I got all that, you're not from my class stuff, right through my teenagers, you know? And you know, at times it worked like a badge, you know, at the same side, you know, it's, and proudly too, you know, but at the same side, you know, it took a couple of years down the line, you know, a couple of struggles, a couple of what the hell moments, you know, and to go, I think I'm going to try something other than my way about this, you know. So a friend of mine had said to me, why don't you go down to the training centre? And I'm like, I'm doing that, I've all day to do it, so why not, you know. Someone else said to me, you get an extra few bob for doing it. And I went, you know. I went down, and so the school I came from was like, you know, you would either get like, you know, I was only chatting with my daughter yesterday about like, I remember watching a teacher kick a student, and that was normal at the time.
Oh yeah.
My daughter was like, what the hell? You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that was normal. You know? I remember seeing a metalwork teacher elbow a student. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
do it right, you know. So of course we were afraid of school, you know. You know, but you know, later in life as I walked back into school and into education, there's a different thing. There's people there going, tell us about you. How can we help you with that? You know, and me being me, you know, like a fly to a blue light, you know. I go for it, and I complete my leaving cert, and someone during my leaving cert had said to me, why don't you go to college? And I'm like, you were saying, that college conversation didn't happen in my house.
Yeah.
And I actually remember driving past the post office one day with my dad, and one of my lads from school, I seen him standing there waiting on the bus to Athlone or something like that. I'm like, where are you off there? I'm going to college. I mean, that's up the window, that's not for you. You know what I mean?
Oh,
That's what we were,
Yeah.
that's, you know, that's
Yeah.
the way we were growing up with that. So like that anyway, you know, school was like, Delaney, you're going down to the Dolphins. I'm like, alright, see you later, I'm gone, you know. And, you know, for me, it's only later in life I realised these things. You know, it was only later in life, it was like someone installed something onto you. You know? It was like, I'm going to put my condemning onto you, you know. And this is all, you know, I'm going to place with this because it all leads back to what I do today, you know. So, fast forward, you know, I applied to college, you know, I actually go to an access course. And like that, loved it. It was like, you know, what do you call it, a platter of a taste of things, you know.
Was that the Trinity access?
No,
That, like,
no,
that
DIT,
kind of
DIT,
access.
and no, Trinity wasn't,
Okay.
not my class. And I had a compulsion to do things in Trinity, yeah. No, my mum said.
That's an interesting way of putting a compulsion. I understand, yeah.
It just wasn't for me, yeah. And I needed a bit of direction, a bit of one-to-one in that way, you know, and because that attention span of goldfish doesn't help, you know, and that's just me. Like that, I go on then and I apply as a mature student, still maturing, let's just say that, you know. And at the same side, you know, I go and I do the tourist thing, you know, I go check out all the other colleges, get free pens, little bags, water bottles, all that kind of crap. And you know, for me it was like, yeah, you know.
Free stuff.
Yeah. And you know, I remember chatting to you one day about it. I actually went out to one of these university people, you know, through life experience, life in itself will give you something, and it'll tell you, you know, it'll give you a bit of a nudge or a direction or what have you. I was out in Blanche, the campus out there. I think it was new at the time, and I'm quite tall. And you know, I went in, and at the time, as a mature, you had to go in and do a writing. You know, it was like a Dear John letter. You know, you need to go to college because I'm poor and what have you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you nearly have to produce that stuff.
Yeah.
Horrible.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yes.
But by God, you learned it as a team. Yeah. But anyway, I remember coming out of college, or that written exam, and I walked into the building. Actually, I walked into the building, cracked the side of my head off it. I was like, that's the universe. Not going there. Funny enough, right? Following day, I went down to another college, and they met me there. I'm going, you're Shaen. I'm like, all right, yeah. You know, that's the universe to me in that way.
Yeah.
I go on, I complete a BSOC in social science, so that was, again, relative to my experience, because I remember sitting in a class, and it was like the penny dropped on me going, oh, this is why I grew up in a cardboard gaff. That moment there, you know, it was like, wow, right, so what do we need to do? And I, you know, as I'm going through the degree, and trust me, I'm not smart. You don't need to be smart to go to college, you don't need to be intelligent to go to college. You know, I go out and I tolerate and I learn in that, and I learn how to write, because the way my writing was, I began my F and probably ended with K. And, you know, it was literally, I knew to talk out in the street and what have you, but I didn't know how to talk in college or anything like that. I was in a class one day and we're talking about class, we're talking about inequality, and we're talking about penny drops again. You know, and I'm going, all right, there's me again. You know, so I'm finding myself in that, and I'm learning in that because it's very immersive for me. You know, the college came to me because I wanted to go in and learn how to go to college. The highest level of education in my family is like junior sir. So even today I had excelled my peers. My parents were like, oh, great, you know. At the same side, I was like, you know, I was given an opportunity then to go and do a master's. Beginning of this journey, I couldn't spell it. By the end of it, I was in it, you know. And at the same side, class is rampant around it. You know, for me, you know, I was going to college, it was bus fare or lunch money. I had people that were in the class who didn't have that worry in the world. I remember going to access offices, getting lunch. I remember going to, you know, getting writing supports and what have you. I had colleagues in class who were paying for tutors to get certain deals and what have you. Money walks, money talks. For me, anyway, you know, college was a real piece for me where it opened the door. I actually found me in it. That's the best way to put it. What I got around is, yeah, I got that title and what have you, but the same side I got me. I am who I am. I do what I do. I working around some of the most marginalised areas in Dublin for the last 10 years. I'm one of these people that, you know, I'd be like, alright, you're in a hole, you're in a jam with something. And they'd be like, yeah, I'm struggling there. And I'd be like, come on, mate, get into it. I'm going to work out that. And you know, I enjoyed it. Because I see myself in that. It's emotional again, it's reflective, it's that mirror piece around life. You know, I've worked in some really, really amazing projects around this stuff where, you know, with Minute, I worked as the first ever prison partnership program. So straight away, like, you know, in Ireland, prison is like, it's the dead end of everything in that way. And for prisoners in Ireland, even though they do their time and all that kind of stuff, they're still in the cage. That each time it comes back up to them going, you know, vetting, what have you. So, you know, through a bit of work with some very talented individuals, we sat down and we were like, you know, there's something. And we were like, yeah, there's something. Here's what we can do with it. And we worked on it. You know, I got to work with all prisons in Ireland. We got to create a program. Then we got to design that program. And then we got to nationalise that program. So that is College Connect and what have you. And very amazing piece. For me, I remember in that, and I was doing my masters, and the dean of Minute leaned over to me and goes, geez, you're getting your money's worth out of that masters, aren't you? I didn't know what he was on about. And like 2 minutes later, I'm like, oh yeah. So me anyway, but you know, I suppose Elayne had asked me to come in to talk about it. Every time she asked me, what do you want off me? You know, I suppose it's that, you know, I enjoy what I do. I work with people around because I believe people deserve a chance. Some of us, we don't give ourselves a chance even before we give ourselves a thought, you know, and really it's that piece about you can't define yourself before you actually go and try something, you know. And in my journey, like I remember a neighbour of mine going, trying that college malarkey. Yeah. And he says to me, so what I want to speak the language. And I'm like, oi. And he goes, oh, I just think it is. I'm like, did you ever go to college? No. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, the class around that then is, you know, for me it was class. And for me it was about, you know, coming from where I came from, learning in that, but also holding the door open for the next person to come through that. Because, you know, we have to open it because communities, you know, I don't care where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Ireland is hurting right now.
Yeah.
People are feeling the pinch. So we have to support everyone in this because that fraction, divide and conquer is, there's only one agenda at that, yeah? And for me, I don't want to be that. And for me, it's about unity, it's about connection, it's about communication, and it's the poetry. It's the, tell me your class, you know?
Yeah.
And how can we connect that, you know? So there's me speech.
Nice one, Shaen, I appreciate it. You reminded me, Shaen, just and we're wrapping up because we're on the time, boys. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. You know, being surrounded by just strong leaders and strong men who understand and who are, you know, caring and empathetic and all, you know, and just awake and very aware. It's feel like, you know, your students, the people you work with, clients, the people you serve are definitely in good hands. And indeed our communities, I've worked with both of you and seen the way it can impact very effectively, or like immediately, the community with the LCAs, and then with like PA to House and the students directly that are going to these open days and talking to men who understand, you know. But you remind me of a friend of mine, is a prison links worker or a criminologist, or he studied something like that, but he said there's one thing great about Ireland, you'll always get a second bite of the cherry in terms of access to college, and it is true, but as well there is, as you mentioned with your friend who says that's a load of gick, that the college thing, there is a blockade, there is a mentality that prevents you from accessing it in one way. Fair enough, there's the resources or facilities, but if you can't access it within you, if you can't be at home within yourself and have belonging and have identity, as you said, you found your sense of belonging and who you were, you know, from your college journey, it is really about growth. I really do truly believe that everything is school and I'm learning all of the time, and indeed this is a moment for, you know, soft research for me, because, you know, I'm actually going in and doing, as you know, I've done the PME, obviously I'm a teacher, professional masters in education, but I'm moving on now to a part-time masters in fine art in art and social action. So indeed this won't be the last time I call on you again and you wonder why she asked me that. So I probably will call on you again, boys, so I'd be so blessed if you would help me along my journey through NCAD and this masters in fine art, which I feel is something for me, you know, because I've been giving and you pour out a lot, don't you, as servants, don't you, as teachers and whatnot. So I want to take in for myself as well. So I'm just so blessed to have been able to listen to you and talking about, you know, your contribution to society and community in the context of class, of belonging, and the politics of our places and spaces in the world, academic and social in general. But yeah, so a round of applause again for